Hi everybody, welcome back to Inside United, where of course we speak to Blades players past and present about their time playing at Bramall Lane. Today's episode has been kindly sponsored by 11 Kings, the free Football Manager strategy game, which is now available on Google Play and the App Store. Now, today's guest really does not need much of an introduction. He was part of the furniture at the Lane for well over a decade, making just shy of 400 appearances before jetting to the other side of the world to start a new adventure. So let's go over to Australia now and say hello, Nick Montgomery.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Great to speak to you. It's been a long time since we met. Lots to cover over the next hour or so, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. That depends on you, I suppose. But let's get straight into it. We'll come on to your time in Australia soon. But 14 years with Sheffield United, I think it was, all in all. Can we go back to your debut? Do you remember it?
Yeah, so going back to the 14 years, obviously I left school and joined us on a scholarship contract, which was brought out, just around that time. So yeah, it was a time when I left school and set off on the journey to be a footballer. So 2 years living in digs in Sheffield, Ecclesall Road, unbelievable memories. Living with some crazy Irish boys, Jags, obviously Tongy as well at times. So yeah, it was 2 years. It was amazing, and wasn't easy. First year broke my ankle, second year had meningitis and ended up in hospital for 2 weeks. But fortunate that I battled back from adversity, and yeah, when Neil Warnock came in, I sort of hit the ground running when he came in, and after good few performances in the reserves, scored a hat-trick at Stockport, and within 2 days I was coming on against Norwich away. So yeah, it was obviously that's a short version of it, but yeah, it was, that was a dream when I left school to be a footballer, and ever since walking out of the tunnel at Bramall Lane, that was my dream. And yeah, luckily I made my debut away at Norwich in 2000.
You mentioned the lads who you were sharing digs with. How important was it that you were able to share that journey with those lads?
It was amazing. Like I go back to the time when I first signed for the club. Obviously myself, Phil Jagielka, there was players from Man City, Man United, Chelsea that had been released, and we all descended on a football pitch in Sheffield. And really it was, dog eat dog. You've got one game, and Russell Slade was the manager, and I gave it everything in that game, and he offered me a 2-year scholarship after, as well as Jags and a couple of other boys that went on to breaking into the probably first year pro contract scene. Never really made it into the first team, but for me and Jags, it was obviously a fantastic place to start our football careers, and yeah, obviously some top lads. Probably some of the best memories of my life, really, just chugging around Sheffield on a bus going to college. I think it's Parsons Cross. So yeah, it was coming from Leeds and a working class family, for me it was normal. But I think a few of the boys really struggled living away from home and having to cope with everything that being a footballer throws it, which is a lot.
How does that transition work from, playing reserves and youth football to suddenly getting a break in the first team? For example, when did you know that, a chance in the first team might be possible? Does Neil Warnock suddenly turn up at the side of the pitch watching you guys, or what?
Yeah, look, I think people, I've done quite a few Zooms and I've told the story, but like I said, you got 2 years as a scholarship, and that's your 2 years to make or break, really. And the first year, really badly broken ankle, pins in it, screws in it. I remember it away at Bradford City, and I remember the surgeon saying, when he found out as a footballer, he was a bit like, virtually your ankle's not good, hopefully you'll get back and play football. And I remember thinking, I'm not even started, and this is the first year. But my mum was always there for me, saying, don't worry about it, you'll get back fit. And to be honest, I always had that tunnel vision that no matter what it threw at me, I was gonna make it as a footballer. And then yeah, the second year I was doing quite well in the academy team. I just remember feeling really sick, and to be honest, I still drove to Bramall Lane. We had a game, and I had the worst headache ever. And I think it's Steve Spencer was my roomie at the time in digs, and I remember saying there was only me that could drive, so I drove to Bramall Lane, and I saw the doctor, and he said, "You're gonna have to go home. You look terrible." And yeah, I just remember sort of ambulance coming and waking up in Sheffield Children's Hospital, and sort of 2 weeks I was there with meningitis C strain, which was the bacterial version, which is, I'm lucky that I didn't, get septicemia and lose limbs, which happens to a lot of kids and adults throughout the world. So yeah, battled back from that, and it was a bit like, wow, like I've got 2 years to be a professional, and within 2 years I'm hanging on to make it in the first team. But I think I got back from that. I don't know if you remember the game I played against Sheffield Wednesday. I had a big bald patch on the side of my head.
I do remember it, yeah.
That was an after effect. It was just,
right.
It was like your head, Paul, to be honest. It was that
Yeah, cheers
bald.
for that, Monty. Thanks.
I'm
amazed you brought that up so soon.
There was no texture to it. It was just this big bald patch. And, apart from that and a bit of insomnia, not sleeping on a night for probably 6 months, they were the only sort of side effects I had. So I think, Neil Warnock came in. He didn't really care or know about the broken ankle and the meningitis. He came in and he wanted to find players that were willing to fight for the club and had the right characteristics that he wanted as a manager. And yeah, like I said, I scored a hat-trick against Stockport in the reserves. Me and Jags played in that game. I think Keith Curl played in that game. And yeah, I was buzzing around because I think after everything I'd been through, it was a bit like, I don't have time now to build. I need to just show him everything I've got. And yeah, he liked what he saw with me and Jags and some of the other young boys. And I played on the Wednesday night in the reserves. I got a phone call saying he trained him in the first team on Thursday morning. And that won't happen nowadays. It's too much load in sports science world, or you can't play a game and train. So yeah, that was it. And I travelled to Norwich on the bus. So I trained fully on the Thursday, 100 mile an hour in intensity with the first team, full of energy after playing 90 minutes the previous night. And yeah, Neil said, "You're travelling." And I remember me and Jags on the bus. I don't think we sat down on the way to Norwich because back in them days it was Marcus Bent and Paul Devlin and these sort of characters and Brownie, and it was, "Can I have a hot chocolate or a cup of tea?" As soon as you sat down, they'd ask you again, so they'd order one, and as soon as you sat down, it'd be, "I want a cup of tea." So I think for 4 hours, me and Jags were probably doing about 12 kilometres up and down the bus. And yeah, and the gaffer pulled me in down the front and said, "I like what I see. You got a good chance of being on the bench tomorrow. Offer me a contract extension," which I signed on the bus, I think.
Wow.
Without the use of an agent, which a lot of kids had just started to get agents at that time. And yeah, that was it. And like I say, Norwich, I think, I mean, listen, you're the stat man, but I think we were 2-0 up, and then we went 3-2 down. And he threw me on for 30 minutes, and I just remember thinking, everything I've been through, this is it. He called me down, and I went on the right wing. That's when I was, still growing. I had a little trick in the bag, and yeah, he threw me on at the right wing, and I just remember playing really well. And afterwards, he sort of, Neil did one of his sprays to the boys and hammered them because losing a 2-0 lead at Norwich. And then he just sort of said, he picked me out and said, and he's been on for 30 minutes. He's 18, 19. And he's just put more effort in than some of you have in the whole game. And that was it from that moment on. I was part of the first team squad that season moving forward. So yeah, it was, like I say, it all happened quite quickly after everything that I've been through.
How supportive were those more experienced pros, and was there anybody in particular that you often leaned on more than others?
It was just a great group. I mean, I look back now and I just think what a fantastic sort of bunch of players. But look, Brownie was there, competitive. I was competitive. Peter Runlove, what a player Peter Runlove was, just his balance. And you look back now and think some of the players that I played with. And, Sean Murphy was always fantastic with me. Simon Tracy, I don't think he liked many people, but I think he liked me because I would block shots, I'd stick my head in. If he shouted me to run, I would run. So yeah, to be honest, it was pretty ruthless back in them days. That the boys were always testing you and testing your character. And as you get older, you realise that as a young kid, you're coming in and it's their livelihood that you're trying to take. It's a massive club, it's an amazing club, and players don't want to leave. But ultimately, football is, it evolves and people come and go. And yeah, I mean, look, like I said, for me and Jags and who were around at the time, the boys were pretty good, and you can never miss Rob Kozlock out there who just hammer everybody constantly every day. So yeah, it was a top bunch of players.
How was Neil with you? I mean, we know what Neil's like as a manager, certainly as a public persona, but behind closed doors, what was he like with you, and what did he want from you?
Look, Neil, again, I've done quite a few podcasts and people ask me, everyone wants to know about the gaffer and his crazy tantrums that are on YouTube and stuff. But, for me, it was so competitive. And for me, I always call him a bit of a crazy genius, because I think people don't give him credit for how good he was as a man manager. And you talk about, I'm doing the pro license at the minute, and the man management for me is 80-90% of it, because if you can get players to run through brick walls for you, then they might lack in ability, they might lack in tactical knowledge, but at the end of the day, if they're going to go out on that pitch and give everything for 90 minutes, then you've got a chance of winning any game. And I think we proved that over the years. And with me, to be honest, I just had so much energy. I could run all day, I could tackle, and like I said, he sort of moulded me into a defensive midfielder. When I was younger, I used to score a lot of goals, but as it goes on, you end up doing a lot of the work that benefits the team. And like I said, I didn't have the most ability in the world, but what I had is I would give 100% effort, dedication, and I'd never stop running. I'd make sure whoever I played against never had an easy game. And I think that's what the gaffer always wanted, because we think back in them first few years, some of the top players in the championship, at times he made me man mark him. And I remember the first Sky game against Fulham. I've just obviously been in the team, and Lee Clark was ripping the league to shreds. Top midfielder, top attacking midfielder, and sort of Neil through that week said, you're going to man mark him. And I think I was 18, 19. I'm thinking, this is Lee Clark, best player in the league, killing it every week. And to be fair though, he'd make a joke of it and sort of say, you're going to follow him everywhere. But just the confidence he gave you, and the boys are always, the boys really appreciated, the work rate that I put in, and I think that's what sort of got me in the group quicker than a lot of young boys, because before me, young boys would come in and they'd be out, and you maybe never see them again. So yeah, it was Neil was a top man manager, and some of the banter that he had on the training ground, and again, people see what they want to see, but I think behind closed doors, I always respected him throughout my time there, the amount of, he would always, if you weren't playing, he would always pull you. It was awkward. And I think that's lacking in football that I experienced moving on, even out here in Australia. Manager having the ability to say, listen, thanks, you're brilliant last week, but you're not starting today, and this is the reason why. It's my decision for the team. And that's why he always had everybody together fighting. And if you weren't involved in the team, you wanted the team to win. And I think it's pretty known that a lot of clubs where the manager isn't well liked, the players, they don't want the team to win, and you just get that toxic atmosphere. And that's something that we never had under Neil. And like I said, for me, his man management style was older players, younger players, players that have played at the top, players that have played at the bottom. He just knew how to get the best out of them, and I think we proved that. Punching above our weight, we did for many years.
I'm glad you mentioned the man marking thing. I was going to ask you about that, but it wasn't Lee Clark. I think it was at Main Road, Man City. Ali Benarbia. I remember that night vividly, where you just literally were his shadow. And what a top player he was, by the way, Benarbia.
Wow. It was him again, top player again. But I think I did that good a job on Lee Clark. And I'll tell the story that after about 25 minutes, he got that frustrated that he said, I'm going to effing knock your head off. And I was, again, growing up where I did, people chasing you to steal your bike and people stealing cars and stuff. For me, it was like, no worries, you want to do that? No, give it a go. Anyway, I think after 30 minutes, he caught me with an elbow on the cheekbone. And it was, back in them days, Sky didn't zoom in on everything. And he caught me hard, like really hard. And I think he bust my mouth from the inside. And anyway, that just wound me up more. When he did that, I just said, listen, no worries, you want to elbow me? Then next time you get the ball, I'm going to smash you. And to be honest, after the game, he shook my hand and said, you know what, fair play, massive respect. And then obviously Neil was, I don't know if you remember that game, Brownie and George Santos had an argument. I think George Santos headbutted Brownie off camera. So again, but these were the things that the boys were, he instilled that fighting character and that competitiveness, and that was infectious. And I think probably after that game, that's when things started to come together. And sort of moving on, like you said, with a man marking, it was and Ali Banabi, I need you to mark him. And no, I didn't really enjoy doing it because, it is not an easy job to do. But if it meant that the team got a result, then for me, I was happy to sacrifice myself doing that. But I mean, I remember Robert Prozinecki as well, Ali Banabi, I think
God, yeah.
Yossi Ben Ayoun. It was, you're not talking average players,
No.
you're talking world-class players. So to be fair, I look back and you know what, that's what probably got me started. And to be honest, it's when you're playing with top players like that, if you can take them out of the game, then you give yourself a big chance of getting a result, and that's what happened.
As you say, some great times. I don't know where to start with them all, to be honest. Let's look at the cup runs, because obviously they stand out for me, getting to the 2 semi-finals, playoff final. Some you played in, some you're on the bench for. But what an adventure that was in particular. That season was just something else, wasn't it?
Yeah, just again, like you say, amazing season. Just the togetherness we had in the group. The players that we had. Everyone just fighting for each other, and without that, you got no chance. And like you said, you instilled that in, and the fans at Bramall Lane, when they get behind you, I always said they're the 12th man, and it's an easy saying. A lot of people say it, but at times they'll just suck the ball into the cup. We'd keep going and going and going, and nobody liked coming to Bramall Lane when no one, not any team used to like coming to Bramall Lane, and you get to know players from other teams, and players from other teams, and didn't matter who you were, top Premier League teams, they came there and they knew that if they were gonna leave with anything, they were gonna have blood on the shirt. It was gonna be a real fight. And yeah, look, that season, it was just, I mean, look, it went so quickly because it was just game after game after game after game, and that's when you do really get the squad tested. But like I say, the players he put together and the way he managed it. I mean, training was intense. Blackie was intense as a coach, and I think his training was always intense, which meant in games, we never stepped our foot off the gas. And I mean, look, to get to, I remember the Liverpool game, to win that, beat them at home, Tongi scoring the 2 goals, and I mean, away at Anfield, I went up for a header, landed on my ankle and twisted my ankle pretty badly. I remember having to come off in that game devastated. But again, the league, we were flying in the league that season, and obviously everyone remembers Pesky's goal against Forest, pushing us through to the playoff final. But I think I always remember when we beat Leeds at Bramall Lane. It was a horrible day. They had a big team, some big names, and they came. The pitch was not very nice. And I remember, I mean, look at some of the players. Steve Cabba, the top player. We won that game 1-0. I got man of the match, I think, and then I always remember the gaffer pulling me before the semi-final at Old Trafford and saying, "Look, you're a man of the match against Leeds. You were brilliant. It's been really hard, but I'm going to have to leave you on the bench and play Stuart McCall." And obviously, I was devastated, but that's the respect that we had. And for me, I said, no problem. Mac, a top player as well. Obviously devastated that I didn't start against Arsenal, but like I said, the fight that we gave Arsenal that day, and again, maybe if there's VAR, the goal doesn't stand. I think Chief got tackled by Graham Paul, but you just look back and just think, I think we played 65 games that season. To get to two cup semi-finals, major cup semi-finals, narrowly miss out to the best teams in England. And then, like I said, the Wolves game was sort of like we played that many games that season. You could tell that everybody was tired. I think the emotion from the Forest game just took a lot out of everybody. And yeah, I just remember going to the playoff final thinking, we just lost 2 semis. Surely we've got to, we deserve to go up. I was on the bench for that game. I just remember we'd been down to Nottingham, I think, a couple of days before. And that's when the whole, I think, Neil told Dean Windass that he wouldn't be involved. Yeah. We just had a whole, to be honest, it was obviously, I think he left the hotel and his story was that he walked out, but I think the real story was that Neil had sort of said to him, look, you might not be on the bench tomorrow. And yeah, we just sort of went into the game, and it was just a bit of a strange atmosphere. And again, sitting on the bench, we went 1-2, 3-0 down, and it was just like I say, it was devastating after that, and I think we deserved something out of that season. But it was to say we finished with nothing, it was a great season, other than not being promoted to the Premier League, which I think everyone would have taken over anything else.
But Neil had this obsession, didn't he, with trying to get promoted to the Premier League. You eventually achieved it, of course. Obviously, goes without saying, special moment.
Yeah, again, like I said, after that, it was, I remember that just being so devastated, just thinking, we went back on the bus, it was silent for most of the trip, and it was, as you're looking back thinking, looking over the season, just all the hard work we'd put in and all the hours on the training ground and the amazing triumphs that we'd had to get where we did, and then you end up with nothing. And as a player, you obviously want to get to the Premier League. We were desperate to get the club to the Premier League. But I think coming back after that, it's like I said, as players, the players that stayed, we knew that hurt from that, and we knew that, we needed to get the club in the Premier League. And again, Neil, with his recruitment, bringing players in, obviously Danny Webber, top players like this. Neil Shipley again was fantastic that season.
Lots of
Obviously,
strikers. It was always strikers.
I mean, you have to love the striker. That was, I mean, obviously, I think Pesky started about 3 games, but every time he didn't score, he never started a game for about 10 games. But he just had this way, Carlos Arbour coming in, like our amount of strikers that had come in and gone was pretty scary. But he didn't settle for players that didn't come in and didn't buy into what the club meant, and we did have that quite a few times. And people ask me about Neil, and he just had this way of, if players came in and you could see that they weren't really fitted to the club, they couldn't hack the fans, because look, the fans are unbelievable, best fans in in England for me, but they can be pretty brutal, and at times because of the success we'd had, they wanted more success, and a lot of players did come from down south and stuff, and obviously been there a long time. A lot of them would say, wow, I didn't realise how the pressure of playing at Bramall Lane. And I don't think, I think a lot of players really struggled with that, with the pressure. And, when you got a bit of stick or when times weren't good, the fans were not afraid to let you know. And whether it was me, Jags, the best players that we had, not saying that I was the best, one of the best, because I wasn't, but what I'm saying is, if they weren't happy, they'd let you know. And that's, for me, that's part and parcel of it. But a lot of the boys that came from, like you said, down south, and foreigners, they couldn't really handle it. But if people came and they didn't fit into what Neil wanted, he'd have a good way of getting rid of them without causing a lot of hassle. And you read the stories about players rotting in the reserves, and one thing I realised in football is you have one lonely player, and then you have 2 or 3 before you know it, you got a dressing room of people that are mourning. But I think the characters that Neil brought in, the likes of Chris Morgan, me, Jags, Brownie, real leaders that, we ran the dressing room, they ran the dressing room, the older boys, when we were younger, and they won't accept poor standards. So again, it was driven from within the dressing room, and that went onto the training pitch every day. And every time we went out on the Bramall Lane pitch, it was, this is a battlefield, boys. No one's going away with anything. And we just, to be honest, we just ran over the top of teams, and a lot of the teams couldn't handle it, the atmosphere at Bramall Lane, which was electric at times.
I think most people appreciated what you brought to the team, Monty, but by your own admission, you weren't the flashiest player. And because of that, do you feel that perhaps sometimes made you a target? I spoke to Michael Doyle recently. He had his fair share of stick as well. And when it did come your way, how difficult was that for you to handle?
Look, like you said, for me, I'd given everything to get there. And I think the longer you're at a club, the easier it is for, when things are not going well, for you to be one of the first people that people have a go at. And it wasn't just, Jags played for England, he captained Everton for 10 years. There's times he got stick. There's times, you look at some of the best players in the world, they all get stick at times when things are not going well. But look, like I say, for me, I knew I wasn't technically the best player in the world, but I knew what I brought to the team. The players respected it, and every manager that I played under respected it. And I tell this story many times, but I could have left so many times. I had options to go, to some big clubs, but I was comfortable.
Why didn't you?
No, do you know what? Because again, I was at a club that was challenging to get in the Premier League, and again, getting to the Premier League with Sheffield United for me was a dream come true. Coming down in the circumstances we did was devastating. I still look back on it now, and it shouldn't have happened. It was the biggest injustice that will ever happen in football, I think. With the Tevez Mascherano affair, and totally illegal. But sort of, I dislocated my shoulder towards the end of that season. I still played in the last 2 games with a dislocated shoulder, and then I had an op. I was out for 4 months. Obviously, Brian Robson came in. We lost Jags. We lost, sort of lost some good players. And yeah, it was, it was a bit of a transition for the club. And yeah, like I said, for me, I came from nothing, and I wasn't one to just up and leave. I've always been pretty loyal, and like I said, at times, I was close to leaving elsewhere, but part of me just said, no, what, I love this club. I've been here since I was 16. It gave me my foot in the door in professional football, and I'm not just going to leave just because things have got a little bit tough. And I just felt, I always, just love being at the club and being part of the club, and look back on it now, I don't have any regrets.
Because there was talk, I think, at one point of Leeds, because obviously from Leeds, support Leeds, as far as I'm aware. But was that close ever?
Look, I came out from when I was 10 to 15. I was at Leeds. Obviously, I left there, came to Sheffield United because they didn't guarantee me a scholarship. And as soon as I arrived at Bramall Lane, then I was a Sheffield United fan, because being part of a club like that, and I just, again, when it came back to it, Leeds, I could have signed for Leeds, I think 3 times. And probably towards the last time I could have signed for him was sort of where, before I came out to Australia. And I just thought, I don't know, this part of me just thought, I've been at Sheffield United for 14 years. Leeds didn't sign me as a kid. I went back there and scored at the Cop End. And I just thought, I was ready for a challenge and something different. I always wanted to play abroad. And to be honest, Paul, I could never see myself playing at Bramall Lane for an opposition team. I'd seen players do it before, but I've been there for 14 years. I just didn't think it. Yeah, it was a sort of surreal vision that I had, like coming out of the away dressing room. And like I said, I think Simon Grayson tried to sign me when they went up to the Championship. And I remember speaking to him, and they were desperate for me to go, but Sheffield for me was we'd come down, and I just thought, I want to get this club back to the Premier League. And obviously we nearly did it with Blackie when we missed out to Burnley. And again, that was another devastating time, but another good season where we just missed out on automatic. But again, we fell to the Wembley curse, or the playoff curse, which sort of hindered the club for a long time.
Yeah, certainly. Who would you say was the best player you played alongside in midfield? Because you played with some quality players in there. You've mentioned one already in Stuart McCall. Who would get the vote there?
Look, I always say, Jag's unbelievable. Like, as a centre back, like going on to captain Everton. But there's times when Jags wanted to be a midfielder. Me and Jags played in the middle. Obviously, Brownie had that unbelievable season. But for me, Tongy, like just ability wise, just Michael Tong's ability. Again, for me, moving to Stoke was, probably looking back for him, probably wasn't the best decision. But after scoring 2 against Liverpool, the hype about him going to Liverpool and stuff, I felt like if he'd have gone to a club like that, he would have gone on to massive things. But football's football; it doesn't always work out. He went to Stoke, and I don't think it was really sort of suited him. But technical wise, yeah, he was top draw. But like I say, I was fortunate. So many, don't disrespect any players, so many top players. Like you say, Peter Unloves, players like that who were just top players. Obviously, very different, but yeah, fortunate I played with and against some top players.
International recognition didn't really happen. You got a little bit with Scotland, didn't you? But there was talk at one point about Sven getting in touch with you about England. I don't know how true that is. Is the truth in that?
I've heard that a few times, but
Yeah.
to be honest, again, it was, when Stuart McCall came, getting in anywhere near an England setup was, unless you're at Chelsea or Man United, it was virtually impossible. Obviously, my dad's family was Scottish, and when Stuart McCall came, it was, I got a call to play for the 21s, which I did a few times. Played for the future squad, and that season in the Premier League, I think I was close to getting in the full national team, and I dislocated my shoulder at Aston Villa, and obviously I think that put an end to it. So, like I said, I enjoyed that side of it. Realistically, I was never going to play for England. Obviously, world class players, especially around my time. But like I said, it was proud moment playing for Scotland. A lot of my family was Scottish, especially my dad's sort of side of it. So yeah, it was a good experience. It was a good experience and something I enjoyed when it did. But I mean, yeah, didn't really get that many games, so it's part of the history.
And do you stay in touch with many of the United lads even now? You mentioned Jags and Tongi in particular. Do you still talk to them often?
Yeah, we always speak. Like I say, always speaking a lot of the time. With the timing here in Australia, it's not ideal. Sort of morning time here is crazy, and it's night time there, vice versa. But yeah, I mean, via text, always speaking to Jags, Tongi. A lot of the boys that were in my sort of apprenticeship scheme at the time, I still keep in touch with Paul Eiffel, Carlos Saba, obviously Richard Creswell. So many players that I played with, and I think that shows the sort of players that came into Sheffield United. There's been some top characters in there, because football is ships in the night. A lot of players come and you never hear from them, you never speak to them again. But certain players, you sort of stay in touch with them, and it's nice. But it shows the sort of togetherness that we had back in them days.
Obviously, we're talking to you from Australia. Whereabouts are you right now?
I'm about an hour and a half from Sydney, on the central coast. So, yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. Football here, it's been going, it's been troubled for the last couple of years. And just before this COVID, there was a bit of a big change going on with the owners taking ownership and away from the Football Federation Australia, and obviously the Fox Sports, which stream all the games out here. There's been it's been a bit messy. So right now it's football's not in a great place here, and it's took a big hit from this COVID situation.
How big a decision was it to go to Australia, and how did that happen?
Look, again, obviously we could speak all day, but I've been at Sheffield United for 14 years. The season we got relegated from the Championship when Mickey Adams came in, and obviously things weren't going great. We lost a lot of good players. He sort of came in, his management style, obviously, Sheffield United fan, came in, and it was, sort of fell out with a few of the players that weren't putting it in. To be fair to Mickey, he wanted players to commit to the club, and at the time I think a few players sort of wanted to jump ship and stuff. So yeah, it was a tough time, and I'd sort of towards the end of that season, my twin girls, Chloe and Lee, were born, sort of premature. So to be honest, it was probably the first time in my life where football wasn't, my number one priority, and they were born premature in intensive care. I remember coming and playing against Cardiff after sat in the hospital for a couple of days, and the sort of team was on a bit of a downhill spiral. Again, some of the players that came in, some of the characters that came in without naming names weren't Sheffield United players and characters, and I think we sort of lost that identity where teams would come to Bramall Lane and know that they're not leaving without a fight. And again, as it goes on and players get sold, and I think investment went down a bit, forget the players, the quality of characters that came in weren't up to scratch. So for me, that was hard, as someone that had been around there. But yeah, we got relegated that year, and my twins were born. So to be honest, when Danny Wilson came in the year after, I obviously started this season, and then the kids were sick quite a lot, sort of in hospital back and forth, and they actually got meningitis, which was unbelievable, but not the C strain. He got the viral version. So I was just off like constantly, and like my head was all over the shop. But to be fair, Danny, top guy, he was really good with me. Kevin McCabe was good with me. Just said, look, take some time off, and to be fair, I missed about 2 or 3 months, and it was, like I said, it was a time where, like I say, the kids were, sort of battling really, and they sort of came through it. And then that was a season. I came back. I got back training, and Kenny Jackett came in for me at Millwall, back to the Championship. Which I didn't really want to go, but I spoke to Danny, and the boys were flying at the time. To be fair, Ched was banging the goals in. Kev McDonald, Doyley, the team was doing really well. So from obviously it was hard, but I wanted the team to win every week. But after what I just come through with the kids, and obviously all the hospital stuff, it was sort of a time in my life. And Kenny Jackett rang me and said, "Look, I want you down at Millwall. Look, top player, always light in the Championship, type of player we needed." And to be honest, I'd not trained for about 3 months. And I went down there, and I just remember the first training session, just feeling my calf was really tight. And as a player, apart from breaking bones and dislocating shoulders, I never really struggled from muscle injuries. So for me, I was a bit like, I must be a bruise on my calf. Anyway, played against Doncaster. Then the next game was against Leeds, and he was going to start me, and he sort of said, "I know your calf's a bit tight. I'm going to leave you on the bench." And I came on, and after about 5 minutes, I just felt this rip in my calf, and it was like a big pop in my calf. Not having a calf or a muscle injury before, I was thinking, that's not feeling right. Anyway, me being me, I carried on for the rest of the game, and then literally hobbled out the changing room after, and got a scan the next day, and had a 17 centimetre tear down my calf.
Wow.
So that was, again, the guy the guy that scanned me said, "I have no idea how you even walking with this, let alone played." I think I played about 30 minutes with it. But I was just that embarrassed that I'd just gone there. He'd put his faith in me. I was back in the Championship. I didn't want to go on and come off. So yeah, that was it. And again, after the scan, I sort of had to apologise to Kenny Jackett and said, "Mate, I'm sorry. Never had a muscle injury before." Came back to Sheffield United. It's probably the lowest I've ever been in my career. After what had happened with the kids, the relegation the year before, when things were not great, and a lot of players that just didn't really care about the club. I'd obviously turned a couple of moves down, previous to that. Obviously spoke to Mickey Adams when Leeds came in for me during that time before we got relegated as well that season. And he sort of said to me, I can't let you go. If I let you go, then I don't have enough characters here that are going to fight to try and keep the club up. So as soon as he said that, I just knocked it on the head. And obviously, the stuff with the kids, and to be honest, it all snowballed, Paul. And I found myself back at Sheffield United, out for 4 months with it. I mean, I was 4 months with a calf injury, but just buzzing that the boys were winning every week in League One, and doing really well. We had a decent bunch of lads. Danny was obviously top man, and Morgs had sort of helped him out after his knee problems. And I got back fit. I think it was about 10 days before the playoff final. Of Kev McDonald pulled his hamstring, and I'd not trained. Literally not done a training session for probably 3.5 months. I'd just started back running, and sort of Danny said, "I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you to play at Wembley." Obviously, Kev McDonald's was top draw that year, top player.
Yeah.
Pulled his hamstring, and it was a bit like, I've not played for 3 months. I've had a nightmare, but if you want me to play, I'll play, no problem. And I just remember playing the game. It was just a horrible game. Like, it was not a good game. And I think I played 90 minutes. I was, like I say, I was totally out of match practice. Didn't play well, but just gave everything like I always did. Without touching the ball for 3 months, it's always hard coming back from injury. Got to 0-0, and I thought, this could be it. And I think I came off in injury time, got to penalties, and we lost, obviously. Steve Simonson put it over the bar, and I think, just sat in the dressing room after. I was, like I said, that was the lowest I've ever been. Someone that I thought was mentally tough. Obviously, everything I've been through, it just sort of, I sort of nearly broke down. I was like, that maybe it's time to move on now. And I just remember sitting there looking around thinking, I could give 14 years to this club. Like, I love the club, but maybe it's time for me to move on now. And sort of that summer, I had quite a few sort of clubs inquiring about me. I had an option to go to America, the MLS, which was Steve Miles used to be the youth team coach. He was assistant to Steve Nicol.
Yeah,
assistant to Steve Nicol, and I spoke about my wife, and to be honest, it was the Mariners here were when the A-League was sort of doing well, there were a team punching above the weight. Kevin McCabe knew the owner. Graham Arnold was the coach, who's now coach of the national team here. And yeah, I remember speaking to Kevin McCabe, and he just said, "Look, are you interested? Would you be interested in going?" And to be honest, I said to my wife, maybe it's time. Why don't we just have a change instead of driving somewhere else in England? Why don't we just go abroad? My dad had been to Australia, and we'd already had the connection with players coming over, and sort of me being at the club for a long time. Every time players came on trial or new players came, I always thought
David
it was my
Carney,
job.
for example. I remember David
Yeah,
Carney.
yeah. So it's always my job to make people feel welcome. And I remember Trent Sainsbury came as a kid. Obviously went to play in the national team here. Played for Inter Milan on loan in China. Had a good career, but he came on loan as a kid. So there's always that connection. And yeah, it happened pretty quickly, Paul. I had a year left on my contract, and I spoke to Graham Arnold, called me, and they just said, "We just missed out on winning the championship for the last season. I want to put some good players together. We're after defensive midfielder, experienced. We've got a couple of experienced boys here. There was players that had played in overseas in the top Dutch league and Belgium and stuff. And yeah, look, that was it. I said to my wife, let's do it. So we signed a contract. It was a 3-year contract, which meant I was 30, I think I was 31 at the time, so it was a good time. And yeah, we packed up the house in 2 weeks with the twins. I moved the other side of the world, so it was a massive, massive move, but one that for the kids, I'll never ever look back on it, because the lifestyle out here and the weather, like I remember when we landed here, they were twins, but Chloe was twice the size of Leah, like literally twice the size of her. But within about 4 months, they were both the same size, and she just got a new lease of life because, again, we'd had all the sickness and stuff in England, and I think the weather out here just really helped them, and outdoors all the time. So, but saying that, I came out here the first year we won the championship. Played in the Asian Champions League against the best teams in China, Japan, Korea. For the first couple of seasons, and to be honest, it was a bit like a repeat of what happened at Sheffield. We had, Tommy Rodgick went to Celtic, Matty Ryan, the keeper, went to Club Bruges, and then he's obviously at Brighton now, top young keeper. Trent Sainsbury moved on to Holland. We had about 4 or 5 top young players, but the experienced boys, we really helped mentor them and develop them. And then a new ownership came in, and I think he thought, it's easy, let's just sell young players. So took his investment out, and to a point where we started trying to play a lot more young players. And for me, I've always been the opinion that if you deserve to play, it doesn't matter your age, but you have to earn the right. You have to earn the right to play in the first team, especially at top level anywhere in any country. You have to earn the right. And yeah, it became sort of players we're getting in the first team here, young players that didn't even deserve to play in the first team. And yeah, it was a couple of years of it's just sort of the club struggling, the A-League, losing a lot of investment when the MLS took off. So yeah, I've seen the best of it here, and I've seen it struggling, but it's been a fantastic experience for me. And people always ask me the difference, and for me, I learned a lot more tactically playing out here, because you're playing in 35, 40 degree heat sometimes. And you can't play like you do in England, because that 100-mile-an-hour championship sort of League One style, you do that in 40 degree heat and keep turning the ball over, transitions constantly. There's players out here even in the heat that have sort of had dehydration and stuff. So I learned a lot more tactically, building up, keeping the ball. And again, we know relegation out here. Teams did play out a lot more from the back because you didn't have that pressure. But again, that's a massive negative that I try and tell the young boys here, that there is no pressure here. You're not going to get relegated. Whereas if you go to Europe and you're not performing and you're losing games, the fans are going to get on you. So I think that's why a lot of Australian young players lately have not gone on to push on to play in England, like your Kuhls and Vidukas, and that's the big conversations going on here at the minute.
You knocked in the odd banger as well. I think if you put Nick Montgomery in Australia in YouTube, a certain goal comes up, you'll tell me straight away which one it was. I'm sure you will.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't score that many, but to be honest, like I say, I sort of I became moulded into a defensive midfielder, and you just sort of lose that. You just sort of lose that side of your game. But yeah, I mean, like I said, as a kid, I used to score a lot of goals, and then the odd time I'd go forward, forage forward, and score a decent goal. But again, for me, I was always my mentality was to make sure that if the other team win the ball back, we're not going to concede a goal, tracking people back, organising, and leave the players that have got the flair and technical ability to go and score the goals. But it's always nice to score a goal, and that's why everyone wants to be a striker or a number 10 these days, I think.
If you've not seen the goal, it's Perth Glory I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you've not seen it, research it on YouTube. Brilliant goal. I had to check it 3 or 4 times just to make sure it was definitely you, but it was. Great strike. Wollongong Wolves, you went there, didn't you, for a bit?
Yeah, so what happened was I got to 36 and I could have played on in the A-League for another year but just at the time I kept twisting my ankle. I had a bit of a bulging disc in my back. And again, I just kept having this bulging disc, and I kept on every couple of months I would sort of bulge it and nip it, and I've just been agony. I won't be able to run for 2 weeks. And then that season, my ankle, obviously I had dodgy ankles, just from all the broken bones and dislocations over the years. And my ankle just kept rolling my ankle, and it just ballooning up. And to be honest, I just thought, 36, 19 years, over 500 games. And the opportunity came at the club, sort of be ahead of football. I'd done the UEFA A licence and B licence over a couple of years, and just really enjoyed the coaching aspect of it, especially the developing young players. So yeah, I sort of spoke to the club, and I just said to my wife, you know what, I think instead of going through the back issues, and again, she'd been with me for a long time, where I had the Achilles tendonitis, back problem, ankle problems, probably because the way I played, I took a lot of knocks. I don't think there was a game I came back when I wasn't icing something. And she said, why don't you just take this role and transition? And anybody will tell you, the transition from playing after a long career into doing something else, coaching, whatever, is no one can prepare you for it. It's hard, but I think I always had that, that will to want to coach, and, I sort of help mentor younger players. And like I said, everything I'd learned, I sort of thought, I wish that I'd been coached sometimes the way that I sort of, I've seen, coaching now, and some of the coaches that I've worked with. So yeah, look, I sort of started coaching the under-16s, looking at the logistics of the club, creating a couple of partnerships, and sort of, just trying to just develop, after football. And it was hard. I used to sit watching every game thinking, why did I retire? I should have played another year. I could still play, I'm still fitter than everybody else. But I think that happens for a while. And then I sort of moved into, a manager came in, asked me to be sort of being a second assistant, as well as sort of working with the academy, just a bit of a dual role, which I enjoyed. But again, when you're not, when you don't make any decisions, and you're sort of just involved, you're just sort of a little bit part. The under-23 role and under-20 role came up here, and I just said, a new manager came in and asked me to be his assistant, and I just sort of said, look, this role's come up. I really like the development side of it, and coaching sort of the younger players. So yeah, we decided I'd take that, sort of help out with the first team a bit on occasions. It's something I really, really enjoyed. And I met a coach on my UEFA A licence, a Portuguese coach that's coached at Benfica under 19s, and he's been in Africa and Italy and stuff. And we kept in touch. And when I got the role, I brought him over. And, he's an unbelievable development coach. He's taught me so much. And we've had success here with the under-20s, under-23s, competing against the big clubs, your Sydney FCs and your teams like that put a lot of money into their sort of youth system. And we're not blessed with resources here and investment in the academy. It's a small place. And again, trying to explain this to people, there's no digs, you can't provide accommodation. If they're going to travel from Sydney, it's a 2-hour travel. So you're getting kids that have been released from Sydney, the big clubs. You've got to travel up 2 hours, travel back 2 hours. And again, there's no money to provide them the accommodation and to manage their daily routine. So as a coach, I've enjoyed it, because it's been a case of having them for 2 hours in the morning and making them understand what it means to be a professional footballer, and try and develop, to be at a level where if you go and train with the first team, it's not a massive gap, and the expectations, and you can meet them. But for me, forget your technical, tactical side of it. It's always mentality and mindset that separates the ones that make it to the ones that don't, and I think that's in every sport.
So what's the long-term ambition for you then? To be a manager outright one day?
Look, I'm just finishing the pro license at the minute. I was supposed to go to Switzerland and do all that stuff the last couple of months, but with the COVID, everything got stopped. Unfortunately, I lost my mum last year, which was tough.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, so look, my dad's on his own now, so again, it's been great out here, but football's took a bit of a hit with the COVID, and hopefully, I reckon once we get everything sorted out, there's a lot of politics out here with different member federations and different rules and regs. But the A-League's a good league. There's been some top players out here, some good teams, but I think right now it needs a reorganisation. And your Man City groups or Melbourne City, there's some powerful football people out here, but I think they're all banging their head against the wall at the minute, trying to piece it all together and centralise it so that it can benefit, and they can look at developing your Vidukas and your Kuhls and these sort of players that they've lacked the last sort of probably 5-10 years. So look, I think for me, I want to finish the pro license. I've had opportunities to go over to America, which I don't think is a great time to go to America.
No.
So yeah, look, I've had some different options and interests. So right at the minute, like I said, I'm just gonna see what happens. See what happens here. We're supposed to be back training next week, but still not fully agreed between the sort of organisations, because the young players here playing a semi-pro league, so a lot of the teams pay decent money in the semi-pro league, the men's, and it's our under 21 players can only play in that league. But if they've got to pay the players and the businesses and how they're funded has took a big hit. A lot of the clubs don't want to restart this season, so it's obviously detrimental to the young players. But hopefully they can come to some agreement and get some games this season, because they don't play enough games here as a kid. That's part of the problem as well. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens, Paul. I'm just going to enjoy time with the family, which I've done the last couple of months, and keep educating myself online with the Zoom calls and finishing the pro license and stuff.
I'm disappointed there's no Aussie twang, Monty. Where's that? You've been out there long enough. There's no accent, nothing.
I'm never going to lose the Yorkshire twang, and my wife says that it's funny when you speak to someone English, the Yorkshire accent comes back more. Whereas the kids have grown up a bit out here, so they've got a Yorkshire accent. But yeah, I'll never lose it. As soon as you start speaking to someone from back home, it just comes back. It's weird. It's like a switch in your head.
Have you had to learn different words though out there? Because obviously things are described a little bit differently. We've all watched Neighbours, which is a horrible stereotype, but you pick up bits and pieces like that.
The funny thing is, nobody watches Home and Away Neighbours out here, but I remember every day after school, getting home from school, watching Home and Away Neighbours.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, football's football. It's the same swear words, it's the same abuse. But yeah, look, I have to tone the Yorkshire accent down a little bit when I'm coaching, because obviously it's when you start speaking 100 mile an hour in a thick Yorkshire accent, the boys don't really understand everything you're saying. So no, like I said, it's been a great experience. I've loved every minute of it.
So you've got a nice life. Are you close to the beach?
Yeah, look, beaches everywhere. 5 minutes to the beaches. But look, I do miss the football. There's so many sports out here. It's an unbelievable country. But you've got your cricket, your rugby, your AFL. It's just, probably as well as America, it's probably the only country in the world where football is not your number one sport. And yeah, look, I miss that passion and that pressure that you get in Europe and in England. Because out here, it's like I say, the fans, a bit like America, they go in to enjoy the game. They don't really go to, because it's
not as tribal.
No, it's not there. And no, again, people ask me over here, what's the difference? And I always explain it that people in England, your Sheffield United fans, your Leeds fans, your Sheffield, they work all week hard. I came from a working class background where my parents worked 12 hours a day, and on the weekend, they pay for the season ticket, and they want to go on a weekend, and they want to see everyone put 100% effort in. And if you win the game, you make their week. If you lose it, especially to a local rival, they're going to get stick. So again, it's you appreciate that when you play there, when you play in England, because the fans are so passionate and it's their life. It's their life, so they want to win games. It's about winning games. It's not about playing pretty football if you lose the games. Whereas here, the more, at times it's some coaches and teams say they're more interested in playing pretty football than actually winning the game. And for me, like you said, it's always got to be about winning games at professional level.
So you're out there for life now, Monty, or can you ever see yourself coming back to these shores?
No, like I said, I'm looking, I always look at different opportunities coming up. I should have the pro license finished soon. Like I said, I've met some unbelievable people throughout my football journey. A lot of people from Sheffield that I still keep in touch with. People like Christine Wilson that went on to Man City and is over in France now with Patrick Vieira. There's another player that I enjoyed having a battle with.
Good name drop that.
Yeah, and like you said, some of the people you meet on the coaching courses just with a different vision. And football's changed a lot from 20 years ago. The philosophies and different styles of play. But like I said, I don't think the one thing that will never change is good characters in your team and that mindset and that mentality that makes you into a good team. And that's why the top players have the best players. But they're not just technically the best; they're the best because the mindset is the best and the best technically. And again, they play to the system that the manager wants. And it's been a total joy watching Sheffield United the last couple of years. Obviously I felt the hurt when I came out here, the League One for 4 or 5 years. But like I say, what Chris has done since going in there has been unbelievable. And like I said, for me, it's proud. I'm always proud that to watch the club every week.
You can see all the games, can you?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, Paul. Like, they have an app out here on Optus. You can watch every single game live. You can watch it as a short version, a long version, a 3-minute version. So to be honest, it's so accessible. And again, a big problem out here is everyone watches the Premier League and Championship, and more than they actually watch the A League. So when you got the Premier League at the touch of a button on your mobile phone, best players in the world. It's obviously it's going to be hard to get them to support all the teams out here.
Well, I think that's about it. What are you going to do now when we switch off? What's next on your list?
Carry on doing some of the pro license coursework, which is quite heavy. Obviously, I think they made a decision a couple of weeks ago that people weren't going to fly around from the world to finish it off. So yeah, I'm just going to crack on with that and like I say, just I'm sure we could reminisce. We haven't. I don't think we've touched the sides of what we could do.
We could have gone on forever.
Stories and stuff, but no, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
You too, mate. So feet up in front of the telly for an hour before bed, is it now?
Yeah, I'll try, mate. I've got a 1-year-old. My girl Eva was 1 year old on the weekend, so she's she's
got
buzzing
3
around every day. Yeah, I've got 3 girls now. Yeah.
Oh, blimey! How's that been?
I've always promised my other two never remember. Obviously, when I walk around the pitch of Bramall Lane, but I said next time we go back to England and Sheffield are playing, I'm going to bring you to watch them because every time we went back, it was always the off season. Yeah. So everybody was away. So no, it's awesome. I can't wait to watch the Villa game next week, and hopefully the boys and Chris can carry on and finish an unbelievable season that they're having.
Well, listen, we look forward to seeing you back in Sheffield in the not too distant future. Good luck with everything, mate. It was always a pleasure to watch you, and you were great to deal with. Top bloke, and I hope everything works out over in Oz for you. See you soon.
Likewise. Top man, Paul.
Cheers, Monty. There you go. Nick Montgomery, our latest guest on the Inside United podcast. We'll see you next time.